The return cuffs were already warm. I disliked that before I knew why. Meridian's collection room had not opened. 5 empty harvest chairs stood beneath bone-white ceiling panels, each cuff folded back like a patient's sleeve. The warming cycle was meant to spare donors a cold return line. At 6:42, it felt early. Then I saw chair 3. Dr. Mara Venn sat reclined beneath a faded teal blanket, one hand resting near the stop control. She was Meridian's director. That morning, she had also been a donor. Her skin was cool. The access lines were intact. No tubing had separated. No spill marked the floor. Her blanket was dry. The chair display read, "Recovery balance confirmed. No net circuit loss. Return phase completed. 25 July, 2052. 6:42. Meridian Regenerative Donor Center. Case 84. One donor was dead from profound blood volume depletion. The machine beside her reported a complete recovery cycle. Those facts did not fit together. Meridian was a regional outpatient clinic attached to a larger cell therapy manufacturing network. It collected donor-derived cell fractions for regulated treatments. Blood moved through a controlled external circuit. The desired cells were separated. The remaining fluid was meant to return to the donor. Nothing in that room suggested an unnoticed loss of volume. The processing room stood behind glass. Product lockers lined one wall, each compartment cooled, weighed, scanned, and logged. In the service corridor, rust-colored carts waited beneath mustard warning labels. Cartridge cases sat in their marked bays. Everything had a place. Dr. Venn's file was complete. Identity checks, consent, infectious disease screening, suitability review, product labels. She had scheduled herself to provide a rare viable mononuclear and progenitor cell fraction. Meridian needed it to validate a delayed manufacturing release. The dead woman had run the clinic. She knew the paperwork better than anyone. Dr. Rafi Bell, Meridian's medical officer, stood beside me while I examined her. Bell was soft-spoken, with a habit of pinching the bridge of his nose before he said something he knew would sound inadequate. He had treated Venn during the run. His first explanation was medically sound. "She said her mouth was tingling," he told me. Then her hands tightened. Those signs mattered. Citrate was used during collection to prevent clotting in the circuit. In some people, citrate could reduce available calcium and cause tingling, cramping, and severe complications. Bell had seen her deteriorate on the monitor. "She could have had a severe citrate reaction," he said, "or a coagulation event. I know how this looks, but those symptoms were real." "I believe you," I said. I did. Venn's early symptoms fit his account. Her collapse fit it well enough that I had to treat it seriously before I looked anywhere else. Then the examination narrowed the room around us. Imaging found no major internal bleeding. Her access sites were intact. The disposable tubing had no hidden break. The chair's leak detectors had remained silent because there had been no external leak to detect. Her clothing was dry. What she lacked was circulating volume, profoundly so. Citrate could explain the tingling around her mouth. It could explain the tightening in her hands. It could not explain the missing volume. Bell watched the estimates settle onto my screen. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he nodded once. "That's not citrate," he said. "No." The machine record came next. Meridian's harvest chair kept a secure audit trail. It logged pressure changes, clamp states, sensor states, cycle timing, user commands, and service access. Nothing had been deleted. No record had been altered. No alarm had disappeared. The log was almost painfully complete. At 6:03, collection began. At 6:24, the chair recorded an early symptom check. At 6:31, it recorded a manual stop request. At 6:31 and 14 seconds, it recorded an authorized continuation command. At 6:39, it marked recovery complete. At 6:42, Venn was found unresponsive. I read the final status line again. Recovery balance confirmed. No net circuit loss. Return phase completed. At first, I read it as everyone else had. If the circuit balanced, I thought, then the missing volume had to be somewhere inside Venn. A bleed we had missed. A rare clotting disorder. A failure of physiology. Then I opened the system definitions. The chair did not certify donor reinfusion. It certified balance inside what it called the recovery circuit. That was narrower. The language had always been narrow. We had made it broad in our own minds. Lena Ors met me in the service corridor. She was Meridian's collection operations lead, a compact woman with a quick voice and a tablet held flat against her chest. She had spent the first hour helping staff contact the day's scheduled donors. Her hands shook only when she stopped moving. The audit trail placed her at chair 3 before opening. At 5:51, she entered a permitted service override. The stated reason was a training calibration fault. "Routine," Ors said. "We had a calibration cartridge flagged from yesterday. I cleared the service condition, checked the chair, and left it ready for Dr. Venn." Was a training cartridge installed during her live collection? Her eyes moved toward the cartridge racks behind me. "No." It was not a convincing denial. It was not yet a provable lie. Meridian's written rule was simple. Training and maintenance cartridges could not be used on a live donor run. The chair normally enforced that lockout. A service override existed for maintenance, calibration, simulated practice, and technical recovery. The override was permitted. Its use that morning was not. Meridian had grown casual about the boundary under staffing pressure. That came from Venn's own administrative messages. 3 months earlier, a staffing shortage had left new collection staff covering too much work. Venn approved limited practice access to training cartridges while experienced staff supervised. She called it temporary. The written restrictions remained in force, but daily habits had softened around them. That did not explain Venn's death. It did explain how Ors had found a door already standing open. Ors looked back at the service rack. "Mara knew we were short." "She allowed training access," I said. "She didn't authorize live use." "You don't know what she authorized." "I know what the system recorded." That made her flinch. One cartridge case sat slightly forward of the others. Rust-colored plastic, sealed, labeled. Returned to its assigned compartment. At a glance, it was unremarkable. Its scan history belonged to a calibration cartridge checked out the previous afternoon. Its housing was warmer than the cases around it. "Recently cleaned," Ors said. "Possibly." I did not open it there. The seal required formal authority. I stood close enough to feel the case with the back of my fingers. It was not hot. It had not cooled. By 08:10, Meridian's manufacturing delay had entered the case. A client batch had missed its expected collection window. The network needed validated donor material to preserve its release schedule. Messages about that delay used the polite language of operations: timing, access, commitments, capacity. The pressure beneath those words was less polite. Venn had spent the previous week arguing with corporate scheduling staff. She wanted Meridian to continue collecting for lower revenue donor programs instead of turning the clinic into a single client pipeline. Manufacturing wanted the delayed batch moved. Ors had been caught between those demands and a shorthanded floor. In an unsent message drafted at 0536, Venn wrote that she intended to halt the delayed batch pending a review of donor coverage and staffing. She had not sent it. That did not tell me whether Venn had decided to cancel the batch. She may still have been looking for a compromise. She had a habit of carrying incompatible obligations until someone else felt the strain. But Ors had reason to think the window was closing, and reason to think Venn would blame her when it did. I returned to chair 3. The cuff was cold by then. I asked the technical examiner for its power use record. The chart showed evenly spaced heating cycles through the recovery phase, clean intervals, repeated pulses. The chair read that pattern as one thing. The return route was armed and ready. At 0642, the warmth had seemed like a comfort feature. After Venn's death, it had seemed like evidence of active reinfusion. It was neither. During a live return, the cuff's response should have varied with the chair's measured perfusion demand. It should have responded to the route the system was actually serving. Venn's cuff had remained in flat, regular readiness cycles. The chair had prepared to return fluid. It had not established that fluid reached her arm. I felt a small, private embarrassment. I had noticed the warm cuffs before I saw Venn. I had dismissed them as atmosphere in a room where atmosphere had no business mattering. They had been evidence from the start. The machine was accurate. We had expected it to mean more than it said. The product locker gave us the next answer. One sealed container from Venn's collection sat in a refrigerated compartment. Its label chain was intact. Its recorded mass matched the modest, validated fraction listed in the run record. That product was real. The system had done its separation work. Below the container, the shelf held a shallow pressure imprint. There was also a condensation ring. A second container had sat there recently. It was gone. The locker log showed a service-coded access event after Venn's run. No donor product had been removed under that code. No collection container had been signed out. A service cartridge, however, moved through a different custody channel. The cartridge case from the rack was sealed at 0902. Inside, investigators found material that should never have entered it. Recovered volume and traces from Venn's run. I'll be careful here. The cartridge was a Meridian design for simulation and service work. Its internal routing was not a routine feature of real collection practice. But its role in this death was plain. It had become the recovery loop. The chair had circulated fluid through the loop it had been given. Its sensors measured balance within that loop. It reported no net loss inside itself. Venn had been outside the return path. When I spoke to Ors again, she had stopped trying to hold the tablet still. The evidence lay on the table between us. The service override, the warm cartridge case, the cuff pattern, the locker imprint, the cartridge findings. "You installed it," I said. She looked down. "Yes." Her answer was quiet enough that Belle, standing by the door, leaned forward. Ors said she had intended to use the live collection to preserve the delayed batch. The official product container would receive the desired cell fraction. The training cartridge would receive the recovered volume under a service classification. She believed she could move the cartridge afterward, conceal the diversion as maintenance material, and restore Venn before the run ended. That was her account. She said she had not expected Venn to deteriorate so quickly. She said Venn was tired. She had worked late. She was distracted by the pending batch. Ors expected her to tolerate the early discomfort while the cycle ran. Belle's face tightened. "Tingling isn't consent," he said. Ors closed her eyes. "No," she said. "It isn't." One point remained. It separated a reckless concealment scheme from the death under investigation. At 6:31, Venn tried to stop the procedure. The chair had captured a short audio fragment as part of its routine check-in record. The room speaker played Venn's voice, strained but clear. "Why does the return feel late again?" Ors answered, "The system's cycling." Then came a soft contact sound. Venn reaching for the control, most likely. The chair registered the manual stop request. 14 seconds later, Ors entered an authorized continuation command. I asked her why. She did not give a speech. People rarely do when the record is this exact. "I thought it was citrate," she said. "You knew the return was diverted." "I thought I could finish, then fix it." Before she noticed? "I thought she'd already noticed." There it was. She knew Venn was in distress. She knew that stopping would expose the cartridge. It would destroy the batch. It would bring Venn's earlier training shortcuts into view, along with Ors's decision to use them on a live run. So Ors continued. She later said she planned to restore Venn. I recorded that as her defense. The evidence could not certify a plan that never happened. It could certify the command she gave. At 11:40, I issued the case finding. Dr. Mara Venn died after profound blood volume depletion during a live cellular collection. The depletion resulted from an unauthorized diversion of the recovery path into a training cartridge. Lena Ors used a permitted service override for an impermissible live purpose, then continued the procedure after Venn requested a stop. The audit trail had not been altered. It had documented the system faithfully. Belle's first theory remained in the record. Venn had experienced real citrate-related symptoms. He had responded to symptoms that could occur during an extracorporeal collection. His explanation failed when it met the volume evidence. Venn's own decisions remained there too. She had allowed training shortcuts during understaffing. She had accepted a clinic culture where an exception could become routine. She had scheduled herself into a pressured run while carrying a manufacturing dispute she had not resolved. Those were conditions. They were not Ors's command. The reconstruction began at 05:51. At 05:51, Lena Ors entered the service override. The chair's normal live-use lockout opened for a calibration condition. She made a training recovery cartridge available in the service path. At 06:03, Mara Venn began collection in Chair 3. Her identity, consent, screening, and product labels had cleared. The harvest system began separating the required cell fraction. At 06:03, the chair believed its recovery loop was complete. That belief was technically correct. The cartridge had been placed where the donor return path should have been. Fluid moved through the defined circuit. Sensors saw pressure, flow, and balance within that circuit. The record began building toward the status it would later display. Recovery balance confirmed. At 06:24, Venn reported tingling around her mouth and tightening in her hands. Belle's citrate concern was reasonable. Those symptoms belonged to the clinical picture. They also gave Ors an explanation she could use. Maybe, at first, one she believed. At 06:31, Venn asked why the return felt late again. Her cuff was warm. The chair was ready. But readiness was all the cuff proved. Venn reached for the stop control. The machine logged her manual request. At 06:31 and 14 seconds, ORS overrode that request with an authorized continuation command. The collection continued. At 06:39, the chair completed its programmed recovery cycle. It had retained balance within the loop defined by the cartridge. It had no net circuit loss to report. Its return phase was complete. The return had not gone to Mara Venn. At 06:42, staff found her unresponsive in chair 3. That afternoon, a technician removed the cartridge rack under seal. I stood in the collection room while the chairs powered down, one by one. Screens went black. The pumps stopped. Cuffs released their residual warmth. Chair 3 went dark last. Its return cuff stayed faintly warm for several seconds after shutdown. A harmless delay, according to the maintenance specification. I watched it cool anyway.